Alright guys, well I tell you what, this is a video that has been actually requested by several different people, and what we have done, we have had a good series up to this point dealing specifically with polygyny, what scripture has to say about what a man and a woman can do with regards to marriage structure, family structure, the fact that a man can have, according to scripture, can have more than one woman, and the scriptural basis for that foundation. We've gone through a lot of this. We've gone through the objections, we've looked at resources, we've talked about a lot of different things related to it, but we haven't really talked about the advantages. And we've had several people ask us specifically, can you do a video about the advantages? And so today we're going to talk about the advantages to men, we're going to talk about the advantages to women, we're going to talk about the advantages to society. Why would one do this? Why would you consider doing this? Why would it be beneficial to all of us if this was an option that was on the table? And so we're going to dive right in, and I'm not, this isn't going to be exhaustive, but we're going to hit some high points, some of the things. To be honest, with Yeshayahu and I, we really kind of put together this list of things from the amount of studying that we've done and that others around me have done and the discussions we've had. We know a lot of this, and it just makes sense. But we were able to put together a list in maybe 10 minutes. And then just went back a day later and said, hey, maybe we want to add one or two things. So this is not going to be exhaustive. And I'm not going to delve deeply into each one because the list is fairly long with a lot of different things. So let's start with some advantages to men. Some advantages to men. Probably the biggest and maybe most obvious one is when we think about Jacob and the fact that God used polygyny. Jacob had 4 wives. He had Leah and Rachel and Zilpah and Bilhah, and through that, in one generation, from Jacob crossing the Yabok going north into Laban's house, he was one man. When he crossed the Nile going into Mitzrayim, into Egypt, about 60 years later, he was 70 men. The first and most obvious is the ability for a man to build wealth and to build clan and to build tribe. It's interesting that tribe is one of those things that is discussed by a lot of people. I've seen a number of people in recent conversation and in recent things dealing with community, talking about being able to build your tribe, and usually that's in the context sort of building a group of, a team that you can live with or work with or whatever. But the reality is that God designed the way for man to build a tribe, and exactly what Jacob did. And for building wealth, there's a really good book. It's fairly thin, fairly small. This was in our resources video. I'm gonna remind you of a couple books in our resources video, but Hondo Solomon does a fantastic job in the book, The Polygamist Papers, of writing and exploring and really coming to some neat, short, very rich or solid gold type of comments and paragraphs dealing with how a man can build wealth, how he can build a family power block with polygyny. So that is an advantage. Another advantage for men is being fruitful and multiplying. Being fruitful and multiplying. The simple fact is that God gave that command in Gan Eden and he never rescinded it. We are constantly inundated with this message that, we've got too much population. Somehow we need to reduce the world's population. And that is absolutely wrong. That's not to say that we don't need to manage resources well and that there's not an abundance of land and an abundance of resources out there that we need to be figuring out how to use more efficiently. But the simple fact is, God said, be fruitful and multiply, and I expect that command remains in place until he comes along and says, okay, you can stop now. And I don't see that happening anytime soon. So we won't get off into a tangent regarding population and the size of the planet, because there's plenty of room for a lot more people to function very efficiently. But the fact is, God said, be fruitful and multiply, and he never withdrew that. And so polygyny offers a man the ability to be fruitful and multiply. One of the pieces related to that is the fact that for a baby to be made and the multiplication to happen, it takes a woman 9 months. It doesn't take a man 9 months. In fact, all through creation, all through nature, we can look and we can see that in most every case, almost every animal within the animal kingdom, right here on our farm, we have one rooster and multiple hens. We have we've got multiple bulls that are being prepared for the slaughter. But if we had multiple heifers, which we do, we would only need one bull to take care of, service, raise up progeny, the whole 9 yards. It's the same case with the way God created man. Which brings up an additional side point that's very interesting, is that we see in the world today that there's a lot of men that maybe are careless in what they do and the relationships and the experiences that they have out there, when in fact polygyny, if it were legitimized and legalized as Scripture allows, it would then give an ability to hold accountable men that already do this on the side. They just don't have the responsibility attached to it to take care of the women and the children that they produce or have kind of going on the side. And so from an advantage to men, particularly those who desire to care for more than one woman, it gives them that framework and the ability and the societal structure that encourages that. Another advantage to men that's demonstrated is the fact that it reduces the ability, or it eliminates the ability for a woman in a monogamy-only circumstance to have a parity that gives her control or gives her an overriding ability to either overtly or covertly manipulate the situation so that she has control. St. Augustine, in some of his writings, said that by nature, when you have a head by nature, or a leader by nature, can have multiple followers. We see that with, a master can have more than one slave. A business owner can have more than one employee. In nature with animals, a lion can have more than one lioness in his pride, so on and so forth. And so that exactly plays out in terms of an advantage to men being, if we understand God's authority structure, God, Messiah, man, woman, gives man as the head of woman the ability to build his clan, build his tribe, and be the sole person that is honored and respected as the head and the leader, and it removes this ability for control in a parity or an egalitarian type circumstance. So those are some of the different advantages to men, and we may come back to a couple of those as we keep going. But let's talk for a second about advantages to society. I want to talk about advantages to society. Is this something that would be good for the world at large, good for culture at large? And the absolute resounding answer is yes on multiple counts. Number one, it reduces or eliminates the need for a welfare state. No longer is the state the father of single mothers, or the husband of single mothers and the father of children that belong to single mothers. Instead, a woman would then have the option, and therefore would need to step into the option of being able to be cared for by a particular man, opposed to being a ward of the state. And so societally, what it does is it eliminates the need to continue to support or take care of single moms and welfare checks and that sort of thing, when in fact they can be, or they have the option, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but they have the option of finding a good man and sticking with that good man and being provided for that way. So it eliminates or removes this whole level of welfare state kind of mentality. And it takes it not just away from culture, but it takes it away from the church, in terms of the church not needing to do that either, because the church rightly doing would be mentoring and growing and building men who can build their families and take care of that. Okay. Another specific point that benefits society is it encourages men to up their game. Encourages men to up their game. No longer, see, throughout history, women, marriageable women, always outnumber marriageable men. It's usually a fairly small percentage. It's not a large percentage, but it's a large enough percentage that a lot of women are going to lose the marriage game, right? In a monogamy only setting. However, and by definition, that means that every man, all he's got to do is turn oxygen into carbon dioxide and he qualifies to have a wife because there's some woman that'll take him. If that is altered so that a man can have more than one woman, now men have to up their game and be worth something, be worth having as a husband, or a woman can say, there are other options out there. Some of them may be married, I may join a family, but there are other options out there, and it's not necessary for me to settle for a man that does nothing but turn oxygen into carbon dioxide, right? So it would encourage men to up their game. Another reason is that is that society would rightly see modeled the relationship between Yahweh and his people. We look at Messiah. Messiah has a relationship with me. He has a relationship with Yeshayahu, has a relationship with others, and from that perspective, it's not a singular relationship, and I don't have a monopolistic control over him or any of that sort, but rather he has multiple relationships, and we see that pictured in the parable of the 10 virgins, and 5 that go into the wedding chamber, the marriage chamber. And so it rightly models that in terms of how the head has a relationship with his people, and gives the framework whereby a man can more correctly model the role of Messiah and the Kahal, the ecclesia, the church, and woman as playing the role as being part of the church with that relationship to Messiah. See Ephesians chapter 5, verses 22 to 33. Okay. Another advantage to society is that it reduces childlessness. Okay, reduces childlessness. One of the big challenges that we have in the world today, almost every Western nation, certainly many of the Eastern nations, is that the replacement rate right now is below what the fertility rate is. And so the end result is over time, what we're going to have is we're going to have an aging population and a shortage of additional blood, if you will, coming into the population. In our country, what that ultimately relates to is that there are going to be a whole lot of people on Social Security and very few people providing for that, which causes taxes to go up and it causes expenses to go up and all these sorts of things, where instead in a society that values polygyny, it means then that every woman who desires to have a child can have a child. You don't have women that are career women and desire children and don't have that option, or they wait until too late instead, and then they can't find a good husband. Instead, there are lots of men around. There are lots of good men, and they have a good selection, and we'll talk about that again in just a second. It reduces prostitution. One of the interesting books that we recommended in the resources is Martin Madden's Thaliaphthora, and this is edited and redone by Pastor Don Milton. But the one of the major things that got him started in searching out and trying to understand why Scripture offers polygyny and why it's a valid option is because he was dealing with the number of women that were devastated by sexually transmitted diseases in the 1600s. Martin Madden understood that because there was an abundance of women, more so than men, that were available for marriage, women would look for a way to take advantage of that, would look for a way to reach the fulfillment and meet the needs that they had, and at the same time realized that men would take advantage of that in a bad way and use or abuse women, which actually increases prostitution. Prostitution goes up in a monogamy-only culture. So James Campbell, in his 1869 offer, The History of Marriage, explores the understanding and demonstrates that culturally, prostitution goes up in a monogamy-only society. And so it plays, or it parallels exactly what Martin Madden says in Thaliaphthora 100 years before, in the late 1700s, a book that he says he never saw until he had finished writing his own manuscript, a book that James Madden says that he never saw until after he had finished his own manuscript. But they came to the same conclusion, that a monogamy-only culture actually causes and increases prostitution, because with having more marriageable women than marriageable men, and men not being being confined to a monogamy-only situation whereby they actually have a heart and have the ability and the means to take care of more, and women don't have the ability, what they end up doing is finding ways to market themselves for the purpose of meeting the needs that they have, whether they be financial or emotional or physical. So if polygyny is accepted as a societal norm, as Scripture allows, then society would benefit in some of these different ways. The final category that I really want to talk about here for just a second is the benefit to women, because a lot of times people will say, well, it hurts women. And in fact, the opposite is true. And I can try to explain this as we go, but it can be demonstrated. A couple things that are obviously sound reasonings for why. Number one is that marriageable women always outnumber marriageable men. Part of this is because men do stupid things. Part of it is because the infant mortality for males is a little bit higher than it is for females. Part of it is because often men do jobs or occupations that allow for or require bachelorhood, celibacy, this kind of thing, going off to war or other occupations and this sort of thing, as well as homosexuality. The end result is that there are always more marriageable women than there are marriageable men. As such, what polygyny would offer is it would offer women options. Instead of having to compete for a small resource, marriageable men, the women would instead have options among all marriageable men, or among all men, whether married or not. They can look around and see, who is it that I can work with? Who do I want to follow? Who do I want to be, teamed up with? Who can provide for me in the way that I need to be provided for? Who's the good-looking guy that I really am attracted to, opposed to, well, that's a quality person, but he's already married, so instead I'm going to have to go over here and select something that doesn't fit my needs or my desires exactly. So women, the biggest benefit is it gives women options. Okay. The second and related deal is that women have the ability to find and marry or secure a qualified man, a proven man in many cases. They can look at a man and say, well, there's a man that has already proven himself financially. He's already proven himself as a husband, as a leader of the home, as a godly man. And as such, that's a quality man I want to follow. I want to be part of his family. I want to be part of his clan. And so in that regard, it allows, not only does it up man's game in terms of competing for and being the best that he can be, but it encourages women to have the option and to go find and select the man that best fits what they perceive to be their needs. Another value is that women tend to be community or communal creatures, where men can be much more lone wolves off on their own. They're sort of designed that way. It's one of the differences in the way God created us. But you watch teenage girls before they really hit the full hormone stage, and culturally they're very much communal. Got to be with other girls, playing, doing things together, house, the whole 9 yards. It's only in our culture where we inculcate them, we train them to be jealous and vindictive, and we train them to be, controlling and manipulative, my man, and everybody else stay away, that they have to give up and go away from that communal aspect. Where instead, in a proper polygynous society, the women, if there's more than one woman in the house, should work together very much. It should very much be the girlfriend sort of function whereby they get along together, they do the things together that girls do, they help each other with the tasks in the home, and in many cases I know of multiple polygynous families where the ladies get along very well, but in many cases where one lady prefers to do this and another lady prefers to do that, and maybe in cases they prefer doing things the other one doesn't really like to do. And so in the case of folding laundry or doing laundry or cooking or cleaning or whatever, they're in the space and they're community minded and communal minded, and in that ongoing girlfriend conversation, while being able to focus in the areas that they most enjoy, and so on and so forth. Another advantage is that children have fathers, and one of the problems we have in Western culture, particularly in monogamous, the hard monogamous cultures, is that there are many women with children who the children have no fathers. There's not a father figure in the home. A major challenge to society is that no father figure increases the chance of going to prison something like 9 times. A child without a father is 9 times more likely to go to prison. It's a very high percentage more likely to pursue a homosexual lifestyle. So there are a number of different things that happen inside of a child, particularly a young man's head and heart, when there's not a father figure in the home. However, again, an advantage to a woman who has 2, 3 children, maybe she's a widow, maybe she's a divorcee, in those circumstances, the advantage to her is that she can find a man that is a good father for her children and commit herself to that relationship and stay in that relationship, because we don't believe Scripture doesn't support just, the free divorce culture that we have in our country or in Western culture. But it allows her to be in a secure place where her children are well taken care of, well looked after, that there's a good role model for the sons especially. Girls will be less promiscuous if they've got a father figure in the home that loves and cares for them and provides headship and leadership and that sort of thing. So all of that is another major advantage to a woman if she's looking out for her children, if she already has children. Another advantage to both society and to women as well as men, but an advantage that really kind of fits into the society category, is that polygyny reduces or should reduce abortion. And it does so for a couple reasons. Number one, it reduces the opportunity, or it reduces the number of men that will simply go out and, for lack of a better term, knock up a girl and then, leave her. Where instead, if the woman has options, she can start looking for a proper husband instead of just having relations to satisfy needs. And she doesn't, find a husband that desires to have children. But also, if a woman has to compete so hard for a man because of a shortage of men in a monogamy-only society, one reason that if a girl gets pregnant, what she ends up doing is having an abortion in order to maintain that very nice figure, opposed to having more of a mom bod, and that leads to abortions, because she's trying to provide for herself and she doesn't want the burden of a child, or it's hard to find a man with a child in a monogamy only culture. There because if men have the pick of the litter, so to speak, they've got lots of ladies available and lots of options for themselves. What are they going to choose? Are they going to choose the mom that's got 2, 3, 4 children, or are they going to choose the one that comes unattached and is single and so on and so forth? Generally speaking, the worldly minded man is going to go that direction, where instead a woman who is fulfilling her calling, that desires to have children, desires to be keeper of home, desires to be walking in that direction, even if she's got a temporary or short-term career with children, man can take that, or she can fit into an environment where she can fulfill that. But that brings up another advantage to women. Maybe there is a woman that is a professional and would like to be able to continue to pursue a professional career, but she wants children. And at the same time with children, she doesn't want to send them off to daycare. Well, if you've got more than one woman in the home, if you have a larger family, she can continue to be a career woman and know that there is a mom, who's part of the family and has a vested interest in the fulfillment of all the family and all the children, and is emotionally connected to every one of them from birth, right there in the home to help take care of them. So that's as well an advantage, which also plays into the building wealth situation. I know of a polygynous family where among the ladies that are in the family, there's a scientist, there's a dentist, there are several others, a couple others, and in that circumstance, there are a couple that handle the home, and then there are a couple that are professionals, and the man himself is running multiple businesses, and that situation where he's preparing his sons for this environment. And so, again, the flexibility within a polygynous situation gives the man much more power and authority and much more ability to build on the strengths of each of the individuals in the family unit that can best benefit the entire family. So lots of good, we've just really kind of touched on the surface of a number of different advantages to polygyny, but polygyny is not for everyone. And polygyny is not for every woman, it's not for every man. But what it does is it opens the door so that those who desire to walk that way have the option, have the ability, can do so righteously without having to keep it hidden in the back. But instead, it's something that can be put squarely on the table. There can be proper benefits and everything taken care of for them, just as it would for any other married couple. And by literally taking some women off of the market, the marriage market, it allows for balancing for all the others that are out there that are single to be able to find a man as well. So lots of great advantages, and the big thing that we've got to do is we've got to culturally get over the monogamy only mindset. It's not scriptural, doesn't come from the Bible. In fact, it comes straight out of paganism and Greco-Roman law, and we've talked about that some. It's something we may talk about again in the future, cover in more depth as we look at Hera and look at Juno, and specifically what their roles were in Roman worship and how the Romans treated marriage and divorce, and how they treated adultery too. All those things were allowed. It was okay as long as you had monogamy only. It was okay to go to the temple prostitutes. And monogamy only allowed for a lot of temple prostitutes simply because there were more women than men. So all of those things together, what we want to do is we want to understand that God didn't create us that way. That destroys us, where we build family, we build wealth, we build clan, we build tribe, we operate within the roles and we operate within the ways that God designed us to function when we function according to His ways, right? And one of His ways is polygyny. So, good video here, a lot more that we could talk about, and we've got more information coming. We really want to talk about widows and orphans and divorcees, and address some of the concerns that have been given to us. Getting more messages from private messages from around the country, and some from outside of the U.S. asking questions, asking for connection in terms of helping to grow this understanding in other places. and we look forward to being able to help others. So reach out to us. You can do it through my blog, notsolved.com, and the contact me page. You can do it through, some have been able to contact me through the YouTube comments section. Put your comments in here, and we'll be opening a Rumble or a BitChute account here shortly to move some of this stuff off of YouTube, or to have a backup site for everything that we're putting together. So look for that as well. We'll have that coming out here pretty soon. All right, guys, thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing your comments and seeing your feedback as we continue this discussion. Shalom. He talks about the fact that women, where was I going with that? Yeah.